Welcome back to Stockpot 4, Part 4. We've got everything just like we left it in Part 3. This is our sulfuric acid with rhodium and palladium. I'm going to set this back out of the way. And now what we're going to do is we're going to pull this flask down. And if you look underneath here, it has some material in it that's just kind of glittering. This is the solution that we added oxalic acid to. And I think we've got some really nice glittery particles of gold in there. I might be wrong. I was expecting gold at first and we got platinum. So let's go ahead and get set up to filter this solution and get those particles of gold out of that solution. I've got this filter set up here, and since we're dealing with a PGM solution, I'm going to use hydrochloric acid to wet the filter. Now we're going to filter our solution that has what looks like gold in it. Isn't that pretty? Here we go. Alright, I've rinsed the gold out of our flask as best I can. And if you look down in here, this material in the filter does in fact look like gold. We're going to take our funnel off of here, move it over to this other flask, get it out of the way. Now what we'll do is transfer our solution here to a beaker. And now we're going to set this up on some low heat and evaporate our solution down on low heat. We're going to take this material in this filter now, put it into a melt dish, and it's not going to be very much. It looks like about a half a gram, if that. Let's put it in this melt dish. I'm going to take it over here, put it on the melt table. Now what I'll do is cover it with some borax, and let's see if we can melt us up a little BB of pure gold from the stock pot. We've reduced our solution from up over 300 milliliters down to about 120 milliliters. It's taken about 6 hours to do this. I'm going to cover this up. What we'll do is set it down here and let it cool off. Here's our small pieces of gold that I was able to melt up and recover from that filter. This is just a tiny amount, not much there at all, and we'll hang on to it. It's probably about a half a gram. I got a little bit of gold out of here now. I realize this thing is all over the place because I'm trying some new things, trying to get this thing sorted out and get some metal out of here. So what we'll do now is just go from here. I'm going to set this beaker in a dish here. Now we're going to add some ice cubes and cool this down. Let's do a quick review. Back here I have the platinum salt that's been dissolved in aqua regia. The platinum salt came from this solution that was in our flask that we added oxalic acid to try to precipitate gold. Instead, we got a platinum salt. We added it to this beaker and dissolved it in aqua regia. Then, after allowing this solution to set in the flask overnight, I got some gold crystals that formed in the bottom of that. We just filtered the gold crystals out. There they are down here. I melted those into a few pieces of gold. It's impure, and so we got a little bit of gold out of there. Now what we've done is we've reduced the amount of liquid in this solution down from over 300 milliliters down to about 120 milliliters. We've got it cooling off. Over here I have my sulfuric acid with my rhodium and palladium in solution. Now what we're going to do is we're going to try a little experiment here to get these metals back out of this sulfuric acid solution. I'm adding some distilled water to this beaker. And this sulfuric acid solution was an experiment to try to remove some of the copper, and ended up pulling a bunch of other metals out as well. So we're going to draw some of this up. There's 3 milliliters, 6, 9, 12, and 15 milliliters diluted in distilled water. Now what I'm going to do is add some pure zinc metal to this beaker right here. I'm going to see if we can cement these metals back out of this solution now with some zinc. This experiment looks to be a success. If you can see, I pulled the precious metals back out of that solution with zinc. And the reason I did this sulfuric acid boil was to try to get the copper out of there. I had no idea it was going to pull a bunch of other precious metals out, the boiling sulfuric acid. And then I'm stuck with a bunch of precious metals and sulfuric acid. So now I've found a way to get them out of there with this zinc precipitation. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up and try to cement all the metals out of this solution. Way back in part 2, if you remember, I had this piece of zinc cementing metals out. And I've got some black powder down on the bottom of this beaker. And I don't know if I'm going to add that to this group or not, but what we're going to do is try to use this piece of zinc. Let me move this back out of the way. This over here. I've got a big beaker that I'm going to pull up. I'm adding some distilled water. Let's see, I guess about 200 milliliters of distilled water. All right, now I'm going to add some of the sulfuric acid mixture that has our precious metals in it. Just going to pour this right on in carefully. This is sulfuric acid with palladium and rhodium and gold and probably some platinum in it. All right, that's enough for right now. I don't want to get overdo it here. Now we're going to see some fireworks. I'm going to pull this piece of zinc that we used earlier in the series to cement metals out. We're going to add this to our sulfuric acid and start cementing out the precious metals out of this solution. Hopefully. It's making short work of that piece of zinc. I'm just happy to get my metal back out of that sulfuric acid solution. Wasn't quite sure how I was going to achieve that, but I think once we get all the metal cemented out with the zinc, then we'll be able to pour the clear solution off and recover the black mixed PGM powders. This looks like it's going to work. Hallelujah, I'm going to get my metals back out of that sulfuric acid. Now what I'll do is I'll add the little test I did here into our main beaker and get this material back into the main beaker. Let's pour in a little bit more of our sulfuric acid with metals in it. I'm going to add it to this bigger beaker here. Slowly, carefully. I better stop there. Don't want to get overzealous with this. Now we're going to add a little bit of distilled water to dilute this down. I'm going to add another piece of zinc here, fresh zinc going in now. We've got our metals coming out of solution on that zinc from the sulfuric acid. I'm thankful I found a way to get that out of there so we can work with this metal again. Now what I'm going to do is bring this solution back up that we reduced. I'm going to move this solution out of the way. This is a little bit of PGMs down in the bottom of our beaker that cemented out earlier in the series. I'll just add this to the stock pot and get it out of the way for right now. Let me push this back out of the way. Now what we'll do is make us a saturated solution of ammonium chloride. I'm adding distilled water to the container with the ammonium chloride. We'll stir this up and get this to dissolve best we can. I've got our ammonium chloride saturated in this container. Let's get down close here and see if we can zoom in on this beaker. What I'm going to do now is add the ammonium chloride to this solution. And we're going to try to precipitate out. Whoops. We're going to try to precipitate out the platinum out of this solution. See what happens. We've got something forming down on the bottom of the beaker here. Not quite sure what that is. I may have formed a complex of platinum down there that is not what we want. Let's see what we got in this solution left. Oh yeah, we got precious metals in this solution. Not quite sure what's in there. Just added the ammonium chloride to this solution. I see some precipitate has formed down on the bottom of the beaker. Now what we're going to do is we're going to pour off this solution that I believe is palladium. See what we got down in the bottom of this beaker. Hold up so you can see what we got in there. I don't think I had the solution at the right concentration. Let's get down in here and get some of this on a piece of filter paper. Do another stannous test. Get a right dark stain there. Set it down on this piece of filter paper. See if we can identify some of the colors from that stannous test. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to call it. Back here I've got my metal cementing out of the sulfuric acid. Palladium and platinum in solution here. Here is our needle-like crystals that we formed when we added ammonium chloride. That means I had the solution over concentrated. So what we'll have to do is redissolve this. And of course I've still got my platinum back up here that we've got to filter and figure out what to do with it. So now I have to wrap this up, conclude part 4. I've got to get ready for a storm. This will conclude part 4 of the platinum refining stock pot 4, part 4 of the series. Thanks for watching.